Hello everyone, myself Preeti Kiran, PGT Chemistry from Kendriya Vidyalaya number 1, Air Force Station, Hindon. Dear students, today I will be taking up the first unit of class 12th chemistry, that is solid state. Dear children, just visualize around yourself and you will see solids are more common as compared to liquids and gases. We are widely using solids, and nowadays the desirable properties in the solids are the high temperature superconductivity, biocompatibility, biodegradable, and the magnetic properties. And that is why it is very important to study the structure of the solids and to study the correlation between the structure and the properties of the solids so that the new solids can be discovered and can be widely used. Dear children, you know that there is a beautiful picture of nature in front of you, the glaciers, the clouds and the liquid water. And you know that these are the three states of water, and it is just a game of that how the water molecules are packed and the strength of the intermolecular forces. This is a water molecule, and when it is very closely packed, the glacier or the ice or the solid form of water is there. But when these water molecules are loosely packed, the clouds are there, the vapors are there, the gaseous form of the water is there. And when the packing is intermediate, we get the liquid water. Dear children, in class 11th, you have studied about the intermolecular forces like dispersion forces, dipole-dipole interactions and the hydrogen bond. You also studied about the thermal energy. And I think that you must remember that these two have the opposite influence. Let's have a quick recap. Just see this figure and you can see the thermal energy is higher on the gaseous side and the intermolecular forces are higher in the solid side. You can very clearly see that these two have the opposite influence. Let me tell you children that the intermolecular forces, they tend to keep the molecules or the constituent particles together. But the thermal energy is responsible for the motion and it tends to keep the molecules or any type of the constituent particles apart. So when the thermal energy is high, we can see that the gaseous state will be there. But if the intermolecular forces will be high, then the solids will be there. Now, at the room temperature and pressure, where the balance exists between the thermal energy and the intermolecular forces, that will be the state of a given substance. Now on the screen you can see different type of solids which we are using in our daily life. There are many crystals and the plastic or the rubber items, and this is graphite, this is a crystal. We are using them in our daily life. Now these are all solids, and the general properties of a solid is they have a fixed shape, fixed volume, and the particles are arranged in a tight regular periodic pattern, and the particles move very little and the solids are rigid. In this unit, dear children, we will study about the crystalline and the amorphous solids and the classification of the crystalline solids. Then we'll take up crystal lattice and unit cells, then three-dimensional packing and the packing efficiency, defects and imperfections in the solids, and in last we'll take electrical and the magnetic properties. In this video, I will give special emphasis to the crystalline and the amorphous solids and the classification. This is the part 1 of the video. Crystalline and amorphous solids. On the screen, you can see a quartz and a quartz glass. Dear children, both have the same building unit, that is silica. It is present in the quartz and the quartz glass. But let me tell you, these two are entirely different. Let's see how they are different. Children, this is the internal structure of quartz. The building unit is silica, and you can see how the silica units are so well packed. There is a pattern, and then pattern is repeated, and there is a long range orderness here. This is quartz. Now, the same silica unit is so haphazardly packed. There is no long range orderness. There is no periodicity. It is glass. Now, quartz is known as a crystalline solid and the glass is known as the amorphous solid. Here, I want to show you a small region in the glass. Just concentrate your attention here and you can see a structure or the arrangement similar to the quartz. This is accidentally it happens, and somewhere you can see a very short range orderness. Now we will study about the crystalline and the amorphous solids. What are they? These are all beautiful crystals which are present in the nature, or they can be prepared synthetically. This is alum, Fitcari. Its chemical formula is potassium aluminium sulfate. You can see it is a crystalline solid and the constituent particles, atoms, ion, etc., whatever they are very uniformly arranged, and you can see the long range orderness. This is sodium chloride, the common salt. The constituent particles are the ions, sodium ion and chloride ions, and you can see the packing. Now, on the basis of the orderness in the arrangement of the constituent particles, the crystalline solids are there, and how we will define? They have the definite regular periodic arrangement of the constituent particles. They exhibit a long range order. But in the amorphous solids, the basic units are randomly joined and there is no long range order. The properties of the crystalline and the amorphous solids. The melting point and the enthalpy of fusion. The crystalline solids have sharp and the characteristic melting point, and they have the definite heats of fusion. I think this is very much clear that there is a sharp melting point of the crystalline solids. The amorphous solids do not have the sharp melting point. They gradually soften over a range of temperature and they do not have the definite enthalpy of fusion. Cleavage property, an important property. When with the help of a sharp edge tool we try to cut a crystalline solid and the amorphous solid, let's see what happens. The crystalline solids, they cleaved along the definite planes. They split into two pieces and the newly generated surfaces are plain and smooth. But in the case of the amorphous solids, they cut into pieces with irregular surfaces. I hope this is very much clear to you, and I am taking a beautiful example from your kitchen. The crystalline solids are like a raw potato and the amorphous solids are like the boiled potato. When mother cooks vegetables or want to make chips, she takes raw potato and with the help of a knife, the sharp edge tool, she gives the shape to the potato whatever she likes. And what we get? We get the clean, plain, smooth surfaces. So a raw potato is like a crystalline solid. But when she tries to cut a boiled potato, the boiled potato crumbles and we get irregular surfaces. I think this is very much clear to you. Here it's a beautiful slide here. Quartz, it's a crystalline solid. I have explained you. So When we try to cut it, we get the clean surfaces. But the glass is an amorphous solid, and when we try to cut it, the glass shatters and we get small pieces with the irregular surfaces. These are actual minerals, and like mica is here, and this is the sharp edge tool. Along the one plane, mica can be cleaved. Feldspar and hornblende, etc. There are the weak planes from where these minerals or the crystals can be cleaved, and the new surfaces generated will be smooth and plain. Now, an important property in anisotropy and isotropy. This is very important from the examination point of view. The crystalline solids are anisotropic and the amorphous solids are isotropic. Now let me explain what does these two terms mean. Crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature means the value of any physical property like electrical resistance or the refractive index would be different along different directions. It is because of the arrangement of the constituent particle is regular along all the directions. With the help of the figure I will explain you in the next slide. First of all, you have to keep in mind these two physical properties like electrical resistance and the refractive index. Just see this. This is a crystalline solid. Now these are two different planes. One is along this red line and another is along the black line. Now let me suppose I want to measure the refractive index. Suppose along this red line. Now you will see above this red lines are only these green particles and below these are the pink ones. Fine. But along this black line, along this plane, you can see the alternate arrangement of the green and the pink balls or atoms. The constituent particles are represented by these. So you can see there is different arrangement of the particles along different lines. So different planes. So when we measure the refractive index along this plane, we'll get some value and which will be different from the value of the refractive index which we will find along this plane. So why it is so? Just because there is a definite pattern of packing, there is a long range orderness in the crystalline solids, and along the different planes, the arrangement of the constituent particles is different. The amorphous solids are isotropic since the constituent particles are haphazardly arranged. There is no long range order. Therefore, when we measure the physical properties like refractive index along different planes, we get the same value. Let's once go through these lines. Amorphous solids are isotropic in nature. The value of any physical property like electrical resistance or the refractive index would be same along any direction. It is because the arrangement of the constituent particles is irregular along all the directions. Now let me share some interesting facts. These facts are about the amorphous solids. On heating and then cooling slowly, which is known as annealing, the amorphous solids become crystalline at some temperature. And therefore, some glass objects from the ancient civilizations are found to become milky in appearance. Dear children, we give you this question very frequently, that why glass objects in the ancient civilizations found to be milky. So what you have to write? You have to write the crystallization of glass takes place due to heating and cooling. One more interesting fact is that the glass panes fixed to the window or the doors of the old buildings are invariably found to be thicker at the bottom than at the top. Now let's see what is the reason behind this. Because like liquids, they have tendency to flow, although very slowly. Fine. The amorphous solids have a tendency to flow just like liquids, but they flow very slowly. So amorphous solids are called the pseudosolids or the supercooled liquids. We also give you this question that why amorphous solids are called the pseudosolids or the supercooled liquids. So the answer is here. Now you have to do the distinction between the crystalline and amorphous solids. There is a table given in NCERT, and all those properties which I have told you now, they are given in the tabular form. So do that from your textbook. Answer the following questions and you have to answer in one word. Just for a quick recapitulation, I have taken few questions. The crystalline solids exhibit different physical properties in the different directions. That is known as, this phenomena is known as anisotropy. There is a short range order in the amorphous solids. Another question, quartz on cutting with a sharp edge tool undergoes clean cleavage. Amorphous solids have tendency to flow, although very slowly. Therefore, they are called pseudosolids or the supercooled liquids. Solids with a sharp melting point. They are crystalline solids. Copper sulfate is a crystalline solid. A solid shows isotropy. It is an amorphous solid. Some glass objects from the ancient civilizations are found to become milky in appearance. It is due to crystallization. Anisotropy is a strong evidence for the existence of the ordered and the periodic arrangement in the crystalline solids. Dear children, now on the screen you can see different substances or the objects, like this is ice, this is diamond, this is a crystal of copper sulfate pentahydrate, and this is copper metal. Now my question from you is, are they same? Are they same? Are you thinking on these lines? And if you are thinking yes, they are same, they are solid, then you are right. They are all solids. They are rigid. They have a fixed shape, fixed volume, and they are incompressible. But dear children, although they are all solids, but they are still different. Now I will explain you how are they different. Now the internal structure of all those four objects or substances which I have taken. Ice, this is the internal structure of ice, copper sulfate, copper metal, and the diamond. Now just concentrate here. Ice is made up of water molecules. These are the hydrogen bonds. You have studied the structure of ice in class 11 in the unit hydrogen. This is copper sulfate pentahydrate. Copper ions are there, sulfate ions are there, and how systematically and periodically they are arranged. But it is made up of copper ions and sulfate ions. It was made up of water molecules. And in the case of copper, now what happens in the case of copper or any metal? Actually, the metal loses its valence electrons and the metal changes into metal cation, which is known as a kernel, Kernel. It is known as kernel, and these are the free electrons which are mobile, which are moving freely. So what happens? There are positively charged metal cations. In this case it will be a copper cation and the free moving electrons. This is diamond. This is not new to you. You have studied in class 10th. These are the carbon atoms, and each carbon atom is tetrahedrally bonded to the other 4 carbon atoms. This also you have studied in class 11th. the allotropic forms of carbon. So here the constituent particle is carbon. Fine. Now if you will just think over, I have told you here the constituent particle is a molecule. Here the ions, here the kernels and the free electrons, and here I said it is made up of atoms. And that is the basic difference, and that is why we have four types of crystalline solids. Why these are crystalline solids? Just see the internal packing. There is a uniform pattern, and that pattern is repeating itself in all the directions, and there is a long range orderness. So they are all crystalline solids, but even then they are different. This is a molecular solid, this is ionic solid, this is metallic solid, and this is a covalent solid. Now let's study about the classification of crystalline solids. Depending upon the type of the constituent particles and the nature of the intermolecular forces operating in them, the crystalline solids are molecular solids, ionic solids, metallic solids, and the covalent solids. Now, the four types of the constituent particles. It can be a molecule, ion, kernels and the free electrons, and the atoms. Now, the intermolecular forces. The intermolecular forces can be dispersion force or the dipole-dipole interactions or the hydrogen bond. It can be an ionic bond, a metallic bond, or a covalent bond. Now depending upon the type of the constituent particles and depending upon the intermolecular forces, we have four types of crystalline solids. Now let me give you a quick recap of the ionic bond. It is not new to you. Ionic bond is a bond which is formed between the two oppositely charged ions. NaCl is a very common example you have studied right from your early classes. Covalent bond, also you know that this bond is formed by the sharing of electrons. Carbon is a very good example. Here the carbon atoms are there and the electrons are shared, and this is a covalent bond. Dear children, you all know that the ionic bond and the covalent bonds are very strong bonds. This is a metallic bond. Let me explain it again. Here the metal cations, they have lost their valence electrons and they are moving freely. These electrons are moving freely. You know that electrons are negatively charged and the metal cation is positively charged. So a bond is developed and that bond is known as a metallic bond. Hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bond is a bond that is formed between the hydrogen and an electronegative element like fluorine, oxygen or nitrogen. These are the only three elements, fluorine, oxygen and nitrogen, that form the hydrogen bond with the hydrogen. So on the screen now you can see the four types of the molecular solids. The molecular solids, the constituent particles are the molecules. They are soft and low melting point and they are poor conductors. Covalent or the network solids are the constituent particle is atom. They are very hard. Their melting point is very high, but they are poor conductors. Dear children, here I want to tell you that the softness or the hardness and the melting point, whether it will be low or it will be high, that depends upon the strength of the intermolecular forces. If it is a weak kind of force like dispersion force, dipole-dipole interactions, they are weak forces. So that compound, that solid will be soft with the low melting point. But if the bond is strong, then that compound, that crystalline solid will be hard and the melting points will be high. Now regarding the conductivity, I want to tell you that the conductivity of any substance is due to the presence of the free electrons or the ions. So we have to check out while answering this that whether a compound will be a conductor, good conductor or the poor conductor. we have to see that whether there are free ions or free electrons are there or not. Later on we'll take up all this in detail. Ionic solid, the name is suggesting the constituent particles are ions. They are hard and brittle and their melting point is high and they are poor conductors. We have to take all these properties in detail later in this lecture only. They are all very frequently asked questions. Metallic solids, the constituent particles are the metal atoms which leave the electron, become into metal cation, and then between the metal cation and the free electrons a metallic bond is formed. They may be soft or hard. They have high melting point. They are always good conductor of electricity. You know that. They are malleable and ductile. Dear children, now molecular solids are further classified depending upon the type of the constituent particles or the intermolecular interactions. The molecular solids may be nonpolar, polar or hydrogen bonded. You can see the slashes here. I am again repeating, a molecular solid can be nonpolar, polar or hydrogen bonded. If it is non-polar, then intermolecular forces are dispersion forces. In the polar molecules, the intermolecular forces are dipole-dipole interactions. And then in the hydrogen bonded, as the name is suggesting, the bond will be the hydrogen bond. The melting point can be from very low to low. And they can be soft to hard, and they are insulators. They will be insulators because there will be no free electrons. Now on the screen you can see an example of the non-polar molecular solid. I have taken an example of an iodine molecule I2. The bond is between the two same type of atoms, and now you can see here this unit is here, and so beautifully it is arranged. There is a repeating pattern, so it is a crystalline solid and it is non-polar. Why non-polar? Because the shared pair of electron is between the two similar kind of atoms and there is no charge, and the intermolecular forces here is the weak dispersion force. So this is very soft and the melting point will be low. Now on the screen you can see a polar molecular solid. I have taken an example of HCl. You know that H is less electronegative and Cl is more electronegative, and due to the electronegativity difference, the Cl acquires a partial negative charge and the H has a partial positive charge. Why it is so? Because the shared pair of electron between H and Cl is shifted towards the chlorine, and hence it acquires a partial negative charge. Now the molecule becomes polar. Developed क्या हुआ है? Plus charge and the minus charge. When the molecules become polar, then the interactions are dipole-dipole interactions. Fine. So again it will control the properties of the polar molecular solids. Now the hydrogen bonded molecular solid. Water is a common example of hydrogen bonding, and that is why I have taken a new example of hydrogen fluoride. This is one HF molecule and this is another HF molecule. Now you know that fluorine is highly electronegative. Now fluorine of the one HF molecule get hydrogen bonded to the hydrogen of the another HF molecule. It is a stronger bond. You know, and you have studied in class 11th that hydrogen bonds are the strong bonds. Now here, Now here there is a comparison of the molecular solids, and I have told you each and everything, and you can go through, you can consult your NCERT. There is a table also given and you can summarize all these 3 points regarding the molecular solids. But just keep in mind that molecular solids are one type of crystalline solids which are further classified into non-polar, polar and the hydrogen bonded. Now I am taking up the ionic solids. As the name is suggesting, There will be the constituent particles ions. You know that there are positively charged ions known as cations and the negatively charged ions are known as anions. Since they are oppositely charged, so electrostatic forces of attraction and the bond is known as ionic bond, which is a strong bond, and that is why the melting points are very high. Now, two important properties to be discussed about the ionic solids, that they are hard but brittle. And this is also a very important point. In the next two slides, I will be explaining these 2 points in detail. An important feature of the ionic solids is they are insulators when they are in the solid state. But they start conducting, they become good conductor when in the molten state or in the aqueous state. Now let me take these 2 points in detail because these are frequently asked questions. Dear children, here the ionics, it is in the solid state, ions are fixed and they are well packed. But when we melt, what happens? The ionic bonds, it starts breaking and the ions become free. Now here the reason for hardness. If the question is for hardness, you have to write that the ionic solids are hard because the oppositely charged ions are very tightly packed and the bonds are very strong, that is ionic bonds. That is the reason for the hardness. But if the question is regarding the brittleness, now I think you all know about that what is brittleness. You have studied in the properties of the metals and non-metals is class 10th that when we beat a metal with the hammer, we get the thin sheets. But in the case of the ionic solids, they break. They break and some irregular surface also emerge. Now why they are brittle? That is the question. Now let me explain you. Just focus your attention on this part and you can see that the oppositely charged ions are alternately arranged. And you know that the opposite charge ions, they attract each other. So this is the ionic solid, a perfect ionic solid. Now we have applied the stress here. And what happened? The layers, they slide. There is a sliding of the layers takes place, and now concentrate on this figure. And you will see that the like charges, they come closer. And the like charges repel each other. So the repulsion takes place and the crystal breaks. Now, the ionic solids are insulators in the solid state, but they conductors in the molten or the aqueous state. It's a beautiful experiment which can be performed in the class or the lab. But here on the screen I am showing you that experiment in the form of the slide. Here this is the solid ionic compound. It's NaCl or you can take any ionic solid. There should be no water inside. Only dry beaker and the solid salt. And this is the bulb and the wire arrangement. Just insert the electrodes into it, complete the circuit and you will see that the bulb will not glow. The bulb will not glow because there is no free ion here. So it is an insulator when in the solid state. Now come to this figure. Here now it is the ionic solid is in the molten form. When it is in the molten form, then some bonds are broken and the few ions are free. Now they will start conducting current and you can see the bulb is glowing. Now come to this third picture. Here it is an aqueous solution of the ionic compound. That means water is added. And now you can see how brightly the bulb is glowing. It is just because ions are free and they are freely moving. So now this statement will be clear to you. Now I am taking up the metallic solids. I have explained you about the kernels and the free electrons. I have told you how a metallic bond is formed, and since it is a stronger bond, so the melting point can be from moderate to high. They are hard but malleable and ductile. You all know about this malleability and ductility of the metals, that they can be beaten into thin sheets and they can be drawn into wires. And you know that the metals are the good conductor of electricity. In every situation they conduct electricity, and that is due to these free electrons. Now the covalent solids, the fourth type of the crystalline solids. The constituent particle is atoms. The bond is the covalent bond. The bond is formed by the sharing of electrons. Since they are very strong bonds, so the melting point is very high and they are hard. They are very hard. You know that the diamond is the hardest substance. But there is an exception to this. Graphite. Graphite is soft. Why graphite is soft? I'll take up in the next slide. And they are all insulators except graphite. Graphite is a good conductor of electricity. So these two questions are very important. Now I am taking up these two. Now this is diamond. Carbon atoms covalently bonded to four other carbon atoms, and since the covalent bonds are directional, so when we repeat this we get a giant network structure. Diamond is the hardest substance and it is used as abrasives. It's an insulator and it's chemically very non-reactive. And why it is insulator? Because there is no free electron or ion in it. Now this is graphite. Now this structure is also not new to you. You have studied in 10th and 11th. The graphite has a layered structure, and these layers are bonded with via a weak dispersion forces, and these layers can slide over each other, and this is a graphite electrode. Sliding planes, and that is why graphite is used as a lubricant, and it is an electrical conductor. That is why we use the graphite electrode. This is the internal structure of graphite in detail. For a quick recap, in graphite the carbon atoms are sp2 hybridized. Each carbon has 3 sigma and 1 pi bond. It has a layered structure in which the carbons are covalently bonded together, forming 6-membered flat rings fused together, and the sheets are then stacked and held together by the dispersion forces. These layers can slide over each other, and that is why there is a slippery feel, and the graphite acts as a lubricant. Now, dear children, this is from your textbook NCERT. It is given in detail and it is given in the form of a table for the quick revision. So consult your book, revise your content and understand, and then do the questions. I am also taking up few questions. Classify the following solids into molecular, ionic, metallic and the covalent. So in such type of questions, what do they give you? They give you many different types of solids, and you have to answer that what type of solid it is. Is it a molecular solid or ionic solid, metallic solid or a covalent solid? So practice these questions. For ionic solids, you have to look for the ions. You all know, you have done salt analysis in class 11th. You have learned the how to write the formulas. You know about the lead ions or ammonium or sodium and zinc, barium, strontium, calcium. These are all cations. You know about the carbonate, sulfate, chloride, bromide, iodide, oxalate. So when a solid is made up of these ions, then you can say it's an ionic solid. For example, this is here ammonium phosphate. You know that ammonium cation is there and the phosphate ion is there. So obviously it is an ionic solid. You know lithium ion and bromide ion. It is an ionic solid. Silicon is a covalent solid. Silicon and the carbon is a covalent solid because they form the bond by sharing of electrons. Graphite, just now I told you, a covalent solid. Brass is an alloy of metals. It is a metallic solid. So you have to do the practice. You have to try to understand that what type of solid it is. Then again it is a similar kind of question. Classify the following solids as metallic, molecular, covalent or ionic. So again this type of question is there which you have to do. A solid is soft and insulator. It is a molecular solid. Now just pay attention. They have said it is insulator. You know that the covalent solids are also insulator. But covalent solids are hard. If they use this term insulator, but with this if they say it's soft, the answer will be molecular. But if they say it's hard or very hard, then your answer will be covalent solid. Sorry. A solid which conducts electricity only in the molten or the aqueous solution. It is an ionic solid. A solid which is very hard, an insulator. It is a covalent solid. Dear children, here we usually get a answer here. You always write like diamond. Diamond is an example. So when the question is in this form, that what type of solid it is, so your answer must be the covalent solid. A solid is hard but brittle. It is an ionic solid. A solid, good conductor of heat and electricity. It is a metallic solid. It is a straight question that it is a good conductor. They have not used when it is in the molten state or when this is in the solid state. Metallic solids are always good conductors. So the answer will be metallic solid. Pick the odd one. Here sulfur, argon, solid carbon dioxide and graphite. So these are all molecular solids, but graphite is a covalent solid. All others are the molecular solids. Another question, NaCl, KNO3, SiC and Na2SO4. This is sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, silicon carbide and sodium sulfate. You all know that these are ionic solids. So this is the odd one because it is a covalent solid. Teflon, glass, polyvinyl chloride and dry ice. I think you all know that these are the amorphous solids and it is a dry ice which is the odd one. So I hope this content is clear to you and